Hello, this is the Coach and Benway podcast. I'm your co-host, Coach Red Pill, and I'm joined by Dr. Benway. Dr. Benway, please introduce yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in.
And so here we are, we're starting another podcast, and Dr. Benway has an issue he wants to talk about, and it's really interesting. So Benway, take it away.
Yeah, so I always think that sometimes you gotta give thanks to the things that just keep giving. And I gotta tell you, Kanye just keeps giving.
Oh, yeah.
And what's also great about Kanye just keeps giving, it isn't always just about himself. He makes other people express their true forms in a way that makes me very happy to see. One such example I love, you probably all saw it. Kanye West naturally is doing something of a media tour, and so Alex Jones, in typical Alex Jones fashion, wants him on InfoWars, and him and Candace Owen, I think. And I think,
oh really?
I think Kanye even accepted, or at least said he wanted to do it. Naturally, the old world, hapless, lifeless, never Trumpers, like, ironically enough, Ben Shapiro said, "Oh no, don't do that. That's wrong for reasons." And Alex Jones, being Alex Jones, doesn't let a challenge go unaddressed, and basically, says of Ben Shapiro, you fucking thought police pussy can't teach people anything, and making the freaking frogs gay.
Yeah. What I love about Alex Jones is that he's a carnival barker. He just throws shit out there and sees what sticks. I love that guy because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is that I love this. This reminded me of, hey, look, I love this dynamic we've got going on. Even though everybody seems to think, Ben Shapiro's the young hot shit, he still represents the old world, established healthy Republican values that's trying to monitor the situation. And yes, the carnival barker who has a point to him.
Yeah.
It's someone who cannot be so easily dismissed.
Yeah.
May look like a clown, but all of you can go fuck yourselves. In a way, there was a metaphor going on during the 2016 election. I think it came from The Atlantic that, hey, this whole election in the Republican primary is like Caddyshack, and Donald Trump is the sort of Rodney Dangerfield character to Jeb Bush, who's the Bushwood, Ted Knight character. Yeah. Well, Alex Jones can easily fit into this, and he's the Bill Murray character. He's the crazy guy going after the gopher. The gophers, of course, being the, transdimensional super demons who are running, everything through Illuminati connections. But still, it works. And I love Alex Jones on that front. I cannot bring myself to say a negative thing about him, even if he does his weird ass shit, even if he's our favorite water filtration salesman. There's something about him that even in his lunacy, there will be a point of accuracy that he gets, whether literally accurate or metaphorically accurate, that I always love to hear him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that he's a carnival barker, but like all carnival barkers, and like Trump himself, whom I also consider a carnival barker, he is trying to get the attention of his audience. And so often as not, he will say things that are in fact true, in a way that the more established, quote unquote, serious people will never say. And that's what I love about him. And I find it incredibly funny that he's going head to head with Ben Shapiro, of all people, who I think is a very, very clever man. I think he's very smart, but I also think that he is sometimes a little bit too clever for his own good. And I think also he's internally inconsistent about a whole host of issues, principally Israel, that a lot of people have criticized him about. But because Ben Shapiro is alt-light, hard right, alt-light in the United States. But in Israel, he's alternative right. So it's like this weird dynamic going on with the guy. That's why I find him just a little, because Alex Jones is one line, crazy line perhaps, carnival barker line perhaps, but he's just one line. Whereas Ben Shapiro is shifty. He's a shifty guy. He's different people for different audiences.
So I think that there's some truth to that. So I'll start with, the apps thing. I think we're in absolute agreement on. I think Alex Jones is consistent, and by that I mean there's an honesty about it. There's a certain kind of madman who cannot lie, if only for the fact that he's so off the cuff that he can't he can't
keep his lies straight.
Yeah, exactly. He can't keep his lies straight. Does he sometimes say things that are inaccurate? Yeah, but it's not out of an attempt to deceive per se. I think it's just he gets too excited for his own good.
His mouth runs away from him, but it's not it's not malicious and it's not deceptive. It's just he wants it to be bigger because he's a carnival barker. You know?
Exactly. Now with Ben, I do think he's two-faced for
Oh
a
yeah.
variety of reasons. But the thing about Ben, I think even you may be giving him too much credit to call him alt-light, because I think at the end of the day, if you really listen to what Ben Shapiro is saying, on most issues, he's just repackaging GOP talking points from
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s pretty consistently. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing he's saying that's shockingly different from stuff you would have heard then.
Yeah.
I think he's gotten credit in our circles just primarily from, being an anti-SJW guy who shows up on campuses. But you know what? Guys in the Republican crop have been doing that for years.
Yeah.
And I think the SJWs are pretty soft targets at this point. It's as if, if Sargon were to do another anti-SJW video, would you really get up and say, holy shit, my life's changed?
No.
Have this new world illuminated itself? No, not really. In fact, I would say Ben Shapiro, we should all remember, is one of the poster childs of the Never Trumpers. And what did he get his big attention for? Hey, well, he used to work at Breitbart. He had that whatever her face, Michelle Fields, claimed I was pushed by Corey Ludinowski, who was Trump's first campaign manager, and Ben Shapiro to borrow a phrase from my friends, chimped out a little bit and got himself morally fired from Breitbart because they were just too pro-Trump, and I am just a good man, and I'm going to white knight a little bit. It's like, come on, guys, we saw this fucking plot many times before. I don't trust the guy on many issues. Does he occasionally, say something that I agree with? Yeah, a lot of people manage to do that. Almost everybody in the world manages to say something I agree with at one point in time.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I go increasingly distrustful of a guy, especially, when I'll tell you what bothers me the most. Anybody who pretends that they are 100% pure principle in political matters these days, which Ben pretends to do.
Yeah. He's lying. He's lying.
Number one, he's lying. And two, what he's really doing is acquiescing to a strategy to where he's every liberal's favorite Republican.
Yeah.
I honestly think if you dissect what Ben's motivations are, you're going to find that he's looking for those sweet plum gigs of the talking heads on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, that kind of shit.
Yeah. He's looking for the shekels. He's looking for mainstream acceptability. And that's why you're right, he parrots GOP talking points, generally speaking, in a very logical and fluent way, in a very, kind of tough way. And he talks about his guns and stuff like that. And he's very, a little bit bombastic sometimes insofar as personal defense is concerned. He's like saying, if somebody breaks into my house, I'll take out my gun and shoot them because I'm going to protect my wife and children and blah, blah, blah. But, he's like the brightest guy, the brightest child in the fifth grade class, sitting up front, saying the right words, the right things, and it's all ultimately But Alex Jones, So anyway, Alex Jones is going to have Candace Owens and Kanye on. I mean, that's the goal. That's what he's trying to put together.
In theory, that's the goal. I haven't seen movement on it, but that's certainly where he's planning on being. Even if all he was advertising was the possibility that Kanye was potentially going to do this, that already makes it interesting to me.
Sure.
Like I said, here's the thing also about Alex Jones, which I think some people tend to forget. These are minor details that kind of illustrate this. He wasn't always just a Republican libertarian crazy guy that everybody loved. No, actually, people on the left used to like him. I'll tell you what, he actually made 2 guest appearances in 2 Richard Linklater art house movies. So
really?
In Waking Life, there is a Waking Life, which is
I saw it. That was a good picture.
Film.
That was really good. It was with Robert Downey Jr. and Keanu Reeves. No. That's the next one.
And Alex Jones is in that one too.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Exactly. So that one is based on the Philip K. Dick story. I think it's A Scanner Darkly.
Yeah, Scanner Darkly. That was a good picture.
Yeah, and Alex Jones is in the midst of this paranoid environment about the presence of a mind controlling substance, parallel to the drug culture, which this drug may or may not be.
I'm trying to remember Waking Life. Waking Life was before Scanner Darkly, and it was
2001.
Yeah, and it was basically the experiment that led to Scanner Darkly. And I remember it was this kid who it was basically shot on film and then digitized, and then basically animation was put onto it, which now is so incredibly common you can do it on your smartphone. But at the time, it was really fucking novel, and it was really interesting. I remember watching it and thinking, man, this is really interesting shit, right? And it was surreal. It was a really surreal picture. Yeah, and they did some anime stuff that I'm not a fan of anime, so I could sense that they were like paying homage to famous anime pictures and what have you, certain transitions and stuff like that. Because later I actually saw some of them. But the point I'm trying to make about Waking Life is that I don't recall Alex Jones, but then again, I'm starting to remember. I don't actually recall the picture. I mean, I know that I watched it, and I remember some vague images of it, but it didn't have like really a story, did it?
Yeah, so that's why you don't remember it, because it wasn't really a story. It was a sequence of philosophical discussions that were circulating Richard Linklater's mind, of which the sort of boatman leading you through it was this young kid who, if any of you guys had seen Dazed and Confused, he's the little middle school kid with the longish hair who's also sort of like your navigator through that story. He's a little bit older in Waking Life, and he's going through and hearing these philosophical discussions from, existentialists, Marxists, postmodernists, whatnot, what have you. Eventually, there's a sequence where Alex Jones is in a car talking into a fucking bugle horn or something, telling people to like
Oh,
be
right,
afraid
I
of the
remember
system
that.
and everything. That's Alex Jones.
That
going
is.
through that. Because I think Linklater and Alex Jones must know each other,
Yeah, they're
and have a
Texas.
little bit of respect. Yeah, they're from Austin, both of them from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And and Linklater is not a left wing. I'm sorry, not a right wingish kind of guy. He's very much, frankly, left wing Hollywood and indie filmmaker. And there was a kind of love that they had for kind of Alex Jones, because Alex Jones just didn't trust the operating powers of that be in the United
But
States.
if you've ever been to Texas, a lot of white Texans, though they may be Democrats, their attitude a lot of times is sort of Republicanish on so far as a lot of issues are concerned. So,
remember the attitude. It's always the Republic of Texas, so that kind of adds to the cultural aspect. This is a tangent, but I want to make this tangent. I actually, unironically and very legitimately love Texas for reasons like that.
Yeah. I've been to Texas on a number of occasions because I had some family members living there, and principally Houston. I suppose I don't. But something. Now that I think about it, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about Texas to be able to give an intelligent opinion about it.
So there's different Texases.
Yeah, I know.
Houston is probably the most kind of buttoned down part of Texas. Higher, very, established homes and businesses there. The Bushes are, or the Houston kind of family. Dallas is a little bit more urbane, a little bit more world. And Austin is sort of, for lack of a better term, hippie-ish. But remember, this is Texas.
Yeah.
Texas hippies are a little bit more palatable than California hippies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's more like Alaska hippies. Yeah,
exactly. And here's the thing, though, that Texas is facing that that they're going to be challenged for. Obviously, we all know the border situation, but the other thing is, I'm sure everybody's aware that people are leaving the places like California in droves.
Yeah.
Where are they going? They're going to places like Texas. Now, here's the problem. People leaving California for tax reasons, this, that, and the other, but this is the nature of, migration, that even if it's internal, white Americans, keep in mind, people from California are going to still bring the same liberal attitudes that are going to lead to the higher tax, more regulated worldview, and it's going to filter into Texas. In other words, they're escaping California temporarily before they turn their next shithole into another California. So like locusts, Californians are migrating.
Okay.
And this is why someone brought up a good point that said, like, hey, people who migrate to another state should, have several years before they're allowed to vote. Kind of thing. I kind of love that. So tangentially speaking, what I'm saying is the beautiful world that made the crazy animal barker or carnival barker Alex Jones is under threat by Californians, mind you. So I implore you, ladies and gentlemen, to figure out a way to solve that problem, because I don't want to lose the breeding ground for more Alex Joneses of this world.
No, yeah, but going back to the issue of Candace Owens and Kanye West on Alex Jones's show, I know that Candace Owens, she's desperate to have a meeting with Kanye. I don't know if that meeting has taken place. Has it? I don't think so.
Yeah, that I don't know. It could have been. Maybe
I haven't heard it. She would have broadcasted all over the place. I haven't heard of any such meeting. But I know that she's desperate for it. Well, obviously, it would raise her profile, like tenfold. Just one tweet of his raised her profile by, she made the national news. So it's like an actual meeting with like an actual conversation with Kanye, insane as that guy is. I tweeted out, I wonder if Kanye is going to wind up being our Khalil Gibran, our age's Khalil Gibran, because, you follow his Twitters with all these like weird aphorisms that he puts up. It's just bizarre. But anyway, the point I want to make is that, see, okay, if Candace Owens and Alex Jones and Kanye West are in a room together, I mean, it's like the left's collective mind is going to explode. I would imagine, because Kanye, he just wields a lot of influence. I don't quite understand why, but apparently he does.
I'm sure you saw that quick survey stat that came out, right? Did you see the one where it says Trump's support among black men went from 11% to 22% or something like that?
Just because of Kanye.
Apparently. Now, keep in mind, I think the N on that survey, N being the number of respondents, is like a few hundred, maybe 400 at most. So don't take it too seriously. But it's still a great little nugget to talk about, because that could very well be the case that Kanye does have that influence. I mean, certainly people enjoy him. People in the Republican Party who like and respect Kanye now went up to 30% from like 10%. And I think that's driving Ben Shapiro crazy. So Ben is looking for any last detail to hint that Kanye isn't really trending towards, true red-blooded republicanism. So he's like, see, he's not really what you think it is. You're all losers for liking him. I'm indifferent to this whole situation. I'm amused by it. And certainly, to the degree, let's put it honest, like if Trump does manage, let's say those numbers about, young men are true. Let's say Trump does manage to take away 10 points of black males. The number of black voters are tight enough to where the Democrats actually need 90% of them in order to win.
Yeah,
that's actually material.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I was thinking to myself, if I'm a Democrat, I'd be very, very concerned, because there's also the other obvious reality. I think that we talked about it in another podcast, but we'll repeat it, that black people do not like the other groups within the Democratic big tent. They don't like gays. They don't like trannies. For them, that whole crowd is just anathema to the black community. But so far the Democratic Party has been able to very professionally smooth out that friction between those groups. But blacks do not like them. Even very liberal blacks do not like trannies and do not like the gays. And the fact that they've been able to live together in the same tent, I think that's just it's not long for this earth, that partnership. And so potentially Kanye could be like, a little bit of a split there.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing about Kanye, and I may have said this as well, is because he's, to put it, in a cliche term, because he's a loose cannon, he doesn't follow orders like that. He's the perfect catalyst for just enabling or just allowing the frustrations that must naturally exist in being part of those kind of tents to just surface. Like I said, I had mentioned before, Kanye brought up a good point. It's like, hey, Obama, you were president for 8 years. Chicago didn't prove anything. And the thing is, like, he acts like Chicago is Obama's hometown. Obama is the ultimate, global upper middle class guy, which is he has no home. It doesn't matter to him. His home is wherever the job is.
Exactly.
So Kanye is different. Kanye is from this area, so he has a different attitude on that. I just think that, to your point, these big tent movements and this isn't just Democrats, right? Republicans were like this too for a while. Any kind of big tent coalitions, they're inherently not stable. They, things shake, people's underlying needs change, much like in how the Republican Party now is facing the conflict of, are we the party to accept, business, big business, globalization and like let the companies do whatever they want, or are we going to say, no, we have a responsibility to local citizens, our voters in middle America who did not get a good deal from this, and we got to change attitudes on things like tariffs and whatnot to accommodate that. They're facing their shift too, and frankly, this has been a long time in coming, right? I mean, these coalitions that have kind of been sort of stabilized for a while in both parties is just falling apart a little bit for reasons we kind of hinted at already. And I think Kanye is representing like I said, if not a shift toward the right, at least a frustration with the current structure.
Yeah, because the thing I've been thinking about is that over the last, close to 30 years, I'm talking since roughly 92. So that's 26 years. The political landscape has been incredibly static. I don't see it having moved that much. It's just gotten more extreme, but essentially static. Or am I reading it wrong, or am I forgetting some big political change? But
I mean, these arguments that we're facing now or that or let's just say the last arguments, that the Trump manifestation is a sign of things breaking. But for the longest time, we're in a lot of ways repeating the 1980 election, right? That's how long ago a lot of these arguments started manifesting themselves. The early 80s, let's say. So Reagan's sort of New Dawn America, big business, whatnot get the end of this sort of social welfare state. And then later on you add in some social conservative biblical elements to that, and that's the Republican Party. All of that is reaching the end of its tether, but that's also tied to the fact that, hey, Reagan was as much a bastion of the neoliberalist reformation that happened in the late 70s, early 80s. So that's also becoming increasingly exhausted. So that's why you're seeing the end. And the thing of that this is, and I think you're as much a student of history on this as I am, we get these shifts all the time. So before that shift, there was the New Deal enablement shift that started after the Depression. Mm-hmm. And before that, there was arguably your Gilded Age inspired attitudes of, hey, is there muckraking versus just let things kind of be as they are. And there's variations on that that I'm probably not remembering, but this happens about every 20 to 30 years. This one took a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, because if you get right down to it, we're having the same arguments politically speaking, but the positions have just gotten more extreme. But there's this incredible drive among so many participants of both parties and all the political of the professional political class to keep it the same, to keep it. It's a cult of stability, okay? An unwillingness to let chaos in. Just doing everything to maintain stability at all costs. I mean, look, you look at the 2008 global financial crisis, right? None of the systemic problems of the financial industry were solved by the heroic measures that the Fed and the Treasury Department took in 2008, 2009. I mean, you and I, well, actually, I don't think you and I have ever discussed that specifically, but you and I think, are in agreement on that the effort was to maintain the status quo, not to fix the problems that had led to the break, but just to paper over the break. As if like the wall had cracked because of an earthquake, and instead of knocking down the wall and building up a new one and painting it and plastering it and putting it nice, they just put on new wallpaper, very shiny wallpaper, but the wall is still broken. The thing is broken.
We are in agreement. I think the moment that crystallized it for me, and I think was the sign of things are starting to break apart amongst the lower levels of this, was right before the 2008 election, when the TARP bill came in.
Yep.
Remember the first vote, they said, no, we're not going to bail out all these people. They got to suffer the consequences. I think actually Republicans were the ones who led the drive on that.
Yep.
I could be wrong. And then, the Bush administration, specifically, what's his face from Goldman Sachs, who was the Treasury Secretary at the time?
Hank Paulson.
Hank Paulson said, you fuck ups voted incorrectly. Go back again and re-vote.
Yeah.
In other words, democracy is suspended, you motherfuckers. We have a system to maintain. And then people wound up and voted. I think the populace realized, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because it was a very obvious, the people you voted for, who probably initially voted in the way you'd like to see, say, hey, you assholes who fucked up, bear the burden. Yeah. No, we can't do that because the risks are too great. Frankly, I don't think the risks would have been that much more different. We can argue about that later. But needless to say, people said, you motherfuckers aren't really doing shit. And that frustration of you motherfuckers aren't doing shit manifested itself in at least a few ways. Many iterations failed until we had something of a success, which was you had Occupy Wall Street, which failed. Yeah, for reasons. You had on the Republican side, the Tea Party, which also failed, but at least got asses in seats.
Yeah.
And then you got Trump.
Yeah.
You had variations on you motherfuckers not intentionally fucked up, but are intentionally don't give a shit about what we're telling you to do. So we're going to try as best we can to fuck you.
Yeah, because and think about it. All those movements. Well, Occupy was left wing, Tea Party right wing. Trump is right wing, although I think that the left is sort of like, in a sense, envious of that kind of grassroots, angry vibe to it, and I think that's why a lot of them tacitly support Antifa, which is a more violent expression of Occupy Wall Street. Look, for me, the moment was insofar as the 2008 financial crisis. It was when they didn't allow Citibank to go broke, and when they bailed out GMAC, the financing arm of General Motors. I thought that was a mistake. They should just let Citi fail. My thinking had always been that they should let all the banks fail, take them over, recapitalize them, strip them of all their bad assets. Just take the hit. Just take the hit. The equity holders in Citibank and Wells Fargo and all the banks. Just let them die, okay? Because those fucking banks, they were fucking zombies. You had to put a shotgun to their heads, get them dead, and reorganize them.
Well, here's how extensive that attitude was, and I was kind of surprised the degree which we were tacitly accepting, like, oh, we'll just bail out everything. I had a hardcore, in one of my previous jobs, one of the partners was a hardcore Republican of the old Reaganite, like, fuck social welfare programs and everything. But even he said, this too big to fail thing is bullshit. He says, okay, you want to have this role? Tell you what, I'll accept it if only this way. If you have a concept of too big to fail, concretely define what that is and then force the situation so that no one ever gets to that size.
Exactly.
Like I said, this is a guy who's anti, interventionism, and even he's saying, no, fuck it. If it's that big of a problem, don't allow it to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Because too big to fail means too big to exist. That's what it means. Okay, if you have something that if it goes broke, it will destroy the system, then you have to break it up. You have to very calmly and carefully just pick it up, have it more or less healthy, and then start chopping it off into pieces. Because ultimately, that was the thing with Citibank, right? Citibank. What was the name of the guy who wanted the name? Not Robert Rubin.
I know. What's his name?
Yeah.
Shit, I feel embarrassed for not knowing.
Yeah. He was the one who wanted to have the whole supermarket approach to banking. He wanted one big bank that had everything, every fucking product, right? Consumer banking and investment banking and stock brokerages and insurance. That's why I bought Travelers Group, right? What was the name of the son of a bitch? You know who I'm talking about,
I do, and I feel so embarrassed I can't figure it out.
Yeah, okay. So we'll remember it in just a minute. It wasn't Robert Rubin. No, but Robert Rubin was the one who basically inherited this behemoth, right? And his contacts made it happen that they bailed out Citibank. Citibank should have been allowed to die. But anyway.
Wild shit was happening during that whole thing. I'm sure if you guys saw that program or read the book Too Big to Fail by
that fucking suck up. Oh man, I hated that fucking.
Yeah, I know. But needless to say, the other moment I remember, and I'll get back to why we're getting into this in a minute. The other moment I remember is when what's his face from the Fed, who later became Obama's Treasury Secretary, Geithner. Mm-hmm. Geithner went up to, I think, Morgan Stanley, who wasn't doing great but was in a better shape than other people, and said, "Here, I want you to be acquired by J.P. Morgan and Chase for $1 a share." Yeah. And Mac, who was the CEO at the time, basically said, "Who the fuck are you to say this to me?" And he said, "Go fuck yourself." And he made a deal with the Japanese to get funding, and now Morgan Stanley's pretty much fine. But that kind of shit, which was like, hey, I'm going to go in and just make a wholesale crazy shit reorganization of things just to manage our overall system. It was just insane of what people are getting away with. And one of the reasons I think this detour was worthwhile is because this is how I see Ben Shapiro operating now. Ben Shapiro is a guy exasperated in his desire to maintain that status quo. If you really look at what he's saying, any kind of deviation from that is license to him to have whatever extra kind of rights he needs to sort of stamp down on it.
What you're basically saying is that the establishment is willing to carry out ad hoc solutions in order to maintain the status quo, in order to maintain their position and the predictability of their position. But they don't realize that by implementing these ad hoc solutions, you introduce even greater uncertainty into the system. Now, my thinking is that, the Democrats and Ben Shapiro and that GOP ilk, they do not want Kanye to be hanging out with Alex Jones and Candace Owens for different reasons. And I think that they fundamentally understand that it's the same reason. It's the maintenance of stability, an unwillingness to, on a political level, open up to instability and chaos. And my thinking is that fucking more chaos, the better. Because the thing is, the more they try to maintain the old system, the old political system, just like the financial system, just as the old political financial system tried to maintain stability at the cost of creating even more uncertainty, even more risk. It seems to me that today the political environment is such that by trying to maintain the political status quo at all costs and implementing ad hoc solutions to this that are contradictory, you are creating more and more tension that will eventually explode. Because I think that we both agree that the 2008 financial crisis, all those ad hoc solutions just created more uncertainty, and we are starting to see how that uncertainty is starting to culminate in some ever nearer crisis that is going to be hitting us. I actually don't know what direction that crisis. I have different opinions about it, but the same thing is going on in politics, and Trump is the expression of that chaos and instability that is being built into the system.
I do agree with that, and I think, and it's what baffles me. Well, not baffles me. I get why. To this day, on both sides, but in the Republican side in particular, you still have these holdout types who are like, well, once Trump's gone, we can get back to mending fences and going back to the old path. The old path is gone, no matter what they tell you.
Why is it that the fucking Republicans, they always want to play nice with the goddamn Democrats? Why? They always like talk about bipartisan. They don't have like the fucking gumption to say to the Democrats, "Fuck you, assholes! You fucking commie pigs, die already!" No, well, they want to be friends. They want to be invited to their fucking cocktail parties. I think that fundamentally, the GOP, the run-of-the-mill GOP, are fundamentally arriviste. They're arrivistes who feel that the Democrats look at them as déclassés and they want to be a part of the in crowd. I think that's fundamentally the problem. At least the Democrats don't have that fucking problem, but the Republicans do.
Yeah, well, it's because of the Republican leadership in particular come from the same, schools and social networks that the Democrats do. But it's because of the nature of culture as it is right now. It's the Democrats' home turf. And those Republicans who were born in it, like, well, I have to take part of the opposition party, but I want to keep my friends. Yeah. I think that describes Jeff Sessions. Frankly, I think his whole recusal and shit is, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of my friends.
Yeah.
And my response to that is, fuck you and your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a job to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's the fundamental attitude that you get. And that's why I think John McCain, to me, is like an ultimate manifestation of that.
Oh, I hate that fucking guy.
That fucking warmonger. The war hawk. I'll give you my theory on his war hawking in just a second, but he's every Democrat's favorite Republican because he's the great loser. What do I think of him ultimately as now? That everybody loves his concession speech in 2008, which they say, oh, is a wonderful way to gracefully accept defeat. In other words, the Democrats are saying, I had him under our skin. So, or I got under his skin. I controlled him like a little puppet, so perfectly. That's what John McCain is to them. But they love, they're perfectly fine with the warmongering with him because, frankly, that they share many of those ideas. But his warmongering, so I'll give you my theory on it. To this day, I think he's trying to make amends for being captured. I think he thinks to himself, if I get into enough wars and we win them, I can feel like every new war I defeated that Vietnamese captor who had me by the balls.
Literally.
And I will reaffirm that I was no coward, that I was not a loser, and that I was able to succeed. I think psychologically that has to be part of what is in his mind.
Who knows? I despise the guy because he every problem for him is a war or intervention. That Wilsonian interventionism, which I think is a cancer of the mind in the leadership class of the United States. But Oh, by the way, I looked it up finally. Charlie Prince.
Okay.
He was the guy, the Citibank guy who created the Citibank as a supermarket of banking. Anyway, Charlie Prince, and he was replaced by Robert Rudin in 2007. Anyway, going back to the whole pivoting. What do you think of the whole Robert Mueller investigation shit and this judge giving him a big fuck you very much? That whole situation, that's pretty goddamn funny.
So that's a good pip. So there's two interesting things that happen to folks who may or may not know. So one, Robert Mueller's in some court. I forget what was the reasoning behind it or what. I think it was the Manafort.
Yeah,
stuff.
Manafort.
And the judge says explicitly, look, you're just wait.
Background. Paul Manafort was like a senior advisor to Trump or something like that.
He was the chairman during that middle period. So the campaign chairman, there were three campaign chairmen. The early period where Trump was the rough and tumble street fighter was Corey Lewandowski. That's where Ben Shapiro backed whatever the Michelle feels because Corey Lewandowski pushed her.
Because he's a little
so he got replaced during that middle period with Paul Manafort, who was the most establishment leader, and that's when Trump needed to get through the convention successfully and get the nomination. So that was him. When Manafort left around, I want to say summer of the election season. So let's just say August-ish, and was replaced by Bannon and Kellyanne Conway to kind of push Trump over the finish line.
Right.
So Manafort, ironically enough, it was the most establishment type, but it's the most establishment type guy who's has the connections to the international interests, shall we say.
Yeah.
But needless to say, they got stuff on Manafort around the same time they were looking into the Podesta group. And when the Podesta group, I think, kind of shut down, or at least the Podestas left it to other hands as they were being investigated. So needless to say, they're fucking with Paul Manafort, and they bring him before a judge for whatever part of
No, it was some shit that the FBI had looked into back in 2007, 2005, 2007. Some old shit, right?
Yeah.
That he hadn't registered as a foreign agent when he'd been lobbying on behalf of the Ukrainian government, some shit like that. And
very technical stuff.
Yeah, and the judge said, well, how does this tie in to this Russian collusion shit? It doesn't, and this is old shit. So how exactly you're just fishing? You're just trying to bring me something to put pressure on this Manafort guy so he'll turn on Trump. Fuck that.
Exactly, and the judge was like, and I'm not bound by your mandate. I know what you're doing. Go fuck yourself. You're full of shit.
Yeah.
And he
gave him 2 weeks to come up with something. 2 weeks is not enough time. Yeah.
And I think, and that's not the only pressure Mueller is getting. There was those Russian bots. Remember, Mueller said, there's 13 Russian or Russian organizations.
Yeah, that, they were so fucking trivial.
$200 on Facebook ads. They're interfering with our election, God damn it. It's like such petty, stupid shit. So one of those companies, I forget the name of it, but one of the Russian companies has legal aids in the United States, and they, if they're not countersuing, they're doing something equivalent, saying, "Okay, Mueller, put it up or shut up." And Mueller's asking to postpone that hearing for a little bit longer so they can gather shit. And that tells me even those were just little token things they were throwing in the air for the sake of saying we're being successful here.
Yeah.
They probably don't even have shit on them.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a serious problem because basically Mueller's position is deteriorating by the day. And if in 2 weeks' time, this Judge Ellis, who's a Ronald Reagan appointee, the guy is old as the hills, right? I mean, he was appointed by Reagan at least 30 years ago. So this guy must be like in his 70s, right? So he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't owe anybody anything, right? He doesn't have any political future because he's too old, right? So he's going to just like rule by the law, and probably he's one of those old-style judges who's going to, looks at it as a point of pride of not being overruled by a superior court. So, he's going to go right down the law, and he requested the Rod Rosenstein memo that gave Mueller his mandate and been so redacted, but the stuff that was shown, none of it would have allowed for what Mueller was doing for Manafort. So he said, let me see the unredacted version. But of course, they're postponing that, which means that they don't have it. They don't have in that redacted part anything that would really go after Manafort. So if the Manafort issue gets dismissed, correct me if I'm wrong, that means that it's just basically a big shotgun blast to the face of the Mueller investigation. Would that be accurate?
I think so, and there's a natural question here as to what degree is the Trump team smart enough to kind of be playing chess, and this is the result of those moves. I don't know, but certainly Mueller's looking increasingly untenable in a certain respect. The things he's gotten seem weak, and even the stuff against Michael Flynn, I think even Comey said recently was, we did not see any evidence of Flynn physically doing anything to suggest collusion by any stretch of the term. So Flynn, that's a guy who, from my opinion, has gotten fucked beyond all reasonable measure. To the point where he's selling his home to pay his legal bills. And honestly, I will say, Trump, that's bad on you. It's one of your team members for whatever
but he can't save him now. He can't save him now. He's got to wait until this is all blows over. Then he can save him, but not now. It would look bad. It would look
that
way
I understand,
bad.
But I would say, and I think Trump's smart enough to do this. Like after this is done, to your point, Trump's got to do good by him.
Oh, he's going to do good by him, and also because Trump is notoriously loyal to the people who are loyal to him, and these people keep their mouths shut. Because look, I have no doubt whatsoever that Trump has got like some dirty linen somewhere, But I have no doubt that it has nothing to do with Russians. It has a lot to do with paying off contractors and paying off people, domestic U.S. people, for whatever reasons, basically to get shit done, because he's a fucking real estate developer. In every country in the world, real estate developers pay off people to make shit happen, okay? That's the cost of doing business, right?
And you and I have had this discussion to the extent of there's a healthy degree of corruption. That's an example of it. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. But legally, Of course, it exposes Trump. And so,
Yeah.
but I think that Trump will do good by these people, but in the indeterminate future, he can't do it now because now, fuck, that would be a catastrophic. But the thing that I think though is that this situation is making not only Mueller's position untenable, but also Rod Rosenstein, who is proving to be
Yeah.
just an apparatchik who really wants to torpedo the Trump administration no matter what, and it puts him in an untenable position. Because he's going to be forced into the position of having to fire Mueller, or not fire Mueller, but wind down the Mueller investigation because there's no there, because none of this Russian shit is real, because we all know what happened. The Democrats pulled the Russian hacking shit out of thin air to explain away the Podesta emails. That's what it's all about. It's just.
And even the smarter Democrats who see where their successes are happening in these special elections are saying, cool it with the Russian shit. We lose when we talk about that.
Yeah.
The only way we win is if we play the local Democrat of saying we're going to do better by the community, which is what a politician should do regardless.
Yes.
And I think they're smart enough to know that. And ironically enough, they're winning because they're kind of playing the Trump playbook a little bit, not in the sense that taking all his talking points, but we owe something to the local community, and that's how we're going to win.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what's happened is that the Democrats are still under the sway of the Clintonistas. And the Clintonistas simply cannot get over the fact that St. Hillary lost.
Did you see St. Hillary's latest stupid statement?
Oh, God, what?
So she was somewhere, I don't know where, forgive me for not knowing, but they were asking her, they said to her, do you think your campaign suffered a little bit because a lot of Democrats identify themselves as socialists and you had the courage to say you were a capitalist? And she says, yes. That's part of it. I believe in capitalism, but with, certain, concerns and this, that, and the other. It's like, of course, now it's her own party who's also at fault. No one is ever at fault who is named Hillary Clinton in her mind. You know what I mean?
Unbelievable. Yeah, she's
why does
such
she
a
keep
terrible
talking?
Politician. Yeah, I know. Look, let's look at Hillary Clinton. She has never won anything on her own. It's always been on Bill's coattails, or Bill gave her a big push. The only election she outright won was the New York Senate race, right? But name one race that she's won. Name one thing that she has accomplished. Her entire life has been a succession of failures. You look back from the very beginning. She graduated from Yale Law, the preeminent law school in the country. She was working in Washington, D.C. She took the D.C. bar exam. She failed it. She wound up following her fiance to fucking Podunk, Arkansas shit, right? Far from where she wanted to be. She didn't see herself as being like the first lady of Arkansas. Because at that time she thought that Arkansas was a piece of shit, because it is. It's a shithole, right? Sorry to the people of Arkansas, but come on, man. I mean, it's a horrible, dirty, corrupt state. Dirty in the metaphorical sense. It's horrible. It's the middle of fucking nowhere for somebody as ambitious as Hillary Clinton was. She had been on the fucking Watergate committee as an aide, right? And, her next position is being married in fucking Arkansas. She must have been like tearing her hair out. But, she failed. That's why she wasn't working in D.C., because she failed her bar exam, which that was kept real goddamn quiet. Okay? But that's the fact. And after that, what did she do? She couldn't invest, so she got into these dirty whitewater deals, which is just basically like a more gussied up way of paying off the governor. That's basically what it was, if you get right down to it. She married a guy who's like a horrible human being, cheated on her nonstop, day and night, right? And she just put up with it. She didn't have the gumption to stand up and say no, and what has she accomplished? Nothing. God, I mean, I despise the woman. I'm ranting here. I'm not saying anything coherent.
No. I mean, you're saying kind of what the feelings people have had about her for a long time. I mean, remember, she also, when she was Bill's first lady, they always tried to argue that, hey, you're getting two for the price of one. You're getting two great, smart people. And she did have a program that she was trying to run in 93. She tried to get healthcare reform. Yeah. And everybody said, you're fucking stupid. And they did a really good campaign against her. Whether her healthcare reforms were, horrific socialist things, that's TBD. But needless to say, she failed to get it passed through. It was a good campaign against it. Yeah, and after that, she was humbled.
Yeah, but the thing is also, she was humbled and reduced to being, a first lady. Which for her was a huge demotion, right? Because she wanted to be co-president, but she just decided that she had earned it. What was it? She just put up with Bill's cheating, and for that reason, she was owed the co-presidency. That was the price. I don't know. It sounded absurd. But the thing is, see, I remember at the time when that was all happening, people were criticizing her on her own side. Because this was before the Clintonistas had overtaken the entire Democratic Party. And there were a lot of Democrats who were telling her, you have to open up these brainstorming sessions. It can't be just you and your people talking about it and presenting some bill, from on high as if you're fucking Moses. You got to go out there, glad handle people, glad handle the Republicans, make friends with them. Because they're the ones you're going to need to order pass this shit. And she didn't because she was so fucking arrogant. That's her thing. She's always been arrogant, and it's the arrogance that has always killed her. That's why she's never done anything. But she always thinks that she's going to do something.
Well, and also remember after her fuck up with the healthcare, remember that's when you had the Gingrich Revolution of '94, and all the Republicans took back control of the House. She had a Democrat-controlled House when she was playing these games.
Yeah,
she lost it, and her husband had to deal with that. Ironically enough, it actually probably introduced a certain degree of stability in the government at that point. The fact that they had to negotiate, but she helped move that needle along. I don't know, but certainly that was the dynamic that was replaced to her. And she kind of bumbled her way through great bureaucracies after that. And I remember at the time after Obama won and she was to be made Secretary of State, a lot of Obama's fans were dismissive of that because she was the arch enemy of Obama during the campaign. They said we voted for him specifically to not get her,
right?
And then she gets it anyway, and her foreign policy,
Libya, and then there was Libya. Which was, as Gaddafi himself said, it was the cork of Africa, and she unplugged it. And the European migrant situation, Hillary, not all of it, of course. I mean, a lot of the Syrian refugees, but all of the Nigerian refugees, the sub-Saharan African migrants. It's all because of Hillary. Because if Gaddafi were still in power, or one of his sons were in power, there wouldn't be the situation. Libya would be a functioning state. And a functioning state which would have controlled the flow of African migrants to Europe.
Can I tell you my favorite interview I want to see that will never happen, but I want to secretly make it happen?
What?
I want Hillary to be brought to the InfoWars studios locked in and have to answer Alex Jones.
That will never happen. Oh,
but it must happen.
No.
But it must happen.
A purple kangaroo will appear in front of me right this second. That's more likely than fucking Hillary appearing on the Alex Jones show. No fucking way.
Well, that's why we need to have our revolution, so we can have the show trial of Hillary Clinton. So
Alex Jones will be the Grand Inquisitor of that particular shit show. Oh, that would be fucking fun.
He'll come in his Catholic robes like, we know what you've been doing, God damn it.
You turned the frogs gay.
Oh God, but I would love. Tell me that would not be.
Oh, that would be fucking
great
funny.
Television.
The great television. Oh, that would be so fucking funny. But by the way. Her little attacks that she has, that when you remember that head bobbing thing that she had when she had all those people asking her questions and stuff, and that she laughed off and said that this coffee is really great. Isn't that fucking weird? I mean, she was clearly infirm.
There's so much about her physicality that just strikes me as fucking strange. Yeah. It's like, it's so odd that there must be a there, like her loogie in the water. Her wobbliness on staircases, that her whole shebang at the 9/11 memorial. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I mean, something physically wrong is wrong with her. I mean, yeah. Look, when she croaks, it'll slowly start to seep out. Because there's another thing too, the Clinton people, they're loyal out of fear, not out of love. Okay, the big rumor is that she's a big old drunk. That she's a big old drunk and she's mean as fuck, and that she tears apart people. Now that is that doesn't inspire any kind of loyalty, not long term. The loyalty brought out of fear is no loyalty at all. But the thing is, see, Trump, for instance, apparently the people around him truly are loyal to him because he stood by them in key moments. Okay. And that kind of loyalty, they'll keep their mouth shut about whatever the fuck is going down. Okay, that's important. That's a key distinction between the two figures. Even with Obama, People love him. I despise the man. I think that Obama is just a piece of shit. He's a man who created more division in the Middle East. Just with the drone warfare, he assassinated American citizens deliberately. He oversaw the NSA becoming a monster and didn't put any kind of stop to it. I mean, I think that Obama, retrospectively, was a horrible president, worse than George W. And I'm no fan of George W. I thought he was a fucking idiot. Although an idiot, but a clever idiot. I mean, a cunning one. He knew how to handle things. But the point I'm trying to make is that, see, people with like Obama, people love him. The people around him still love him because apparently he's a nice guy. Okay, but Hillary, they're afraid of her. So I think that when the witch is finally dead, the shit is going to just explode. And I'm saying they're not gonna wait for the body to be cold before they start flinging out shit. Well, actually, Bill will also have to be dead by that time. But once they're
Bill
both
and her,
safely
I don't
dead.
know what they got into. Both of them look frail as hell these days.
No, they're old. They're old.
Yeah, but I mean, Bill's only like 72. Bill's my dad's age. My dad looks more robust than Bill, frankly. Trump's Bill's age as well. Trump looks more robust than Bill. I don't know what the fuck.
Well, but you have no idea the loss that because look, there's also an issue now. They truly are powerless. They don't have any power whatsoever. And this is the first time in 30 years or 26 years since he was elected that's been the case. Because the man is truly powerless. Bill Clinton had a lot of pull after being president, a lot of power because there was the expectation that Hillary would one day be president. When she lost, he lost too. Okay, so I suspect that it's like vampires that all of a sudden are deprived of fresh blood. That all of a sudden
and I wouldn't be surprised if the response to your point of her is not unlike the Weinstein thing, where like now that he's gone, everybody feels they're free to kind of take the shots they want to take. That could very well be. Can I also? This is related, but it's a tangent. But I want to talk about it.
Sure.
It's the degree to which, because after we talked about Obama and the Clintons, it reminded me of these idea of like the rootless cosmopolitans and their distinction between those who are really associated with a place. So what I mean by that, so the Clintons, to your point, Hillary's from Chicago, but moves to, carpetbags to New York and Arkansas for, reasons of political expediency. She wants to have something.
Right.
That idea of like she's a quote unquote citizen of the world means what she's really looking out for is her career.
Yeah.
Bill had a manifestation of that. Obama definitely did. Obama's not a Chicagoan. I don't care what people tell you. Yeah. It was just a place he was at for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to guys like, Trump, who's a New Yorker. No matter what Trump does, he's a New Yorker.
Yeah, he's a New Yorker through and through.
Alex Jones, he's not a politician, but he's a Texan. Alex Jones is a fucking Texan.
Yep.
Go through the list. There are people who are of a place, and that is their home, and that's who they represent. It reminds me again to the book that everybody should read. It's like another manifestation of skin in the game. When you are associated with an area or something that you have to represent and protect and nurture, there's a certain healthier attitude that you take to certain things, as opposed to when you're a rootless person. It's like, oh, every place could be home for me. Yeah. And I feel like that's also part of the problem, they kind of have here. And I don't want to necessarily disparage people who move around for a job. I get it. This situation is forcing you to kind of do that. But, that is just also a manifestation of the problem. We would love for no one to ever feel at home anywhere, because we don't want you to feel at home anywhere. We want everything so fluid.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, actually, Bill Clinton himself is from Arkansas, and he's an Arkansas boy.
Yeah, he's a little bit better than Hillary, but he also moved around. He was to New York for the Clinton Foundation, and still everything. He's a bit better than his wife.
But I think
more successful.
I think that he self-identifies as an Arkansan. I don't know how to make a noun out of a pronoun out of Arkansas.
I think
what.
I think Arkansan actually is the right word to use, but
okay. But be that as it may, I think that Bill feels that. But yeah, the others are completely rootless. Yeah, well, George W., he's a Texan. He feels Texan, even though, he spent a lot of time. I think he was actually born in Maine, right?
I forget where he was born, but I think he honestly thinks he's a Texan. I think he probably is at this point.
Yeah. But no, about the whole cosmopolitanism, In my own experience, my father, for business reasons, traveled around a lot, and so we moved around a lot. I wound up going to 13 schools in 11 years of schooling, right? It wasn't as much. I mean, it's not that I moved 13 times. It just happened to be I'd be in one place, and just as I was tail end of one school and the beginning of the other school. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that that kind of international class that goes to the local private school that's like the international school, they look at the world in a completely different way. They look at it. It's not just merely like without borders, but the interests transcend borders. The corporations, the global interests of the different countries, and how they interact with one another. It's a mentality,
yeah.
and it's a very interesting mentality that I do not think is conducive for creating politicians that will be responsive to the people. Okay, because they are. It's not that they are beholden to transnational interests or transregional interests. It's not that they're beholden, but rather they don't understand the local interests. So they don't see it. They think that everybody can be like them, can move around effortlessly.
Exactly, and I think it completely changes their view. They have no connection to the true local community, and their perceptions of what happens to those local communities is transmuted through what they see in their traveling world. So they think to themselves, "Hey, I travel the world, and I meet a nice guy named Sanjay or Miguel or whomever, and he's a really nice guy, very successful. Why don't you like more guys like Miguel who come in
exactly.
and be friendly?" Well, the thing is, we don't. The average person doesn't get the nice, successful business people that you encounter. They get, it's a different situation for them.
Yeah, but not only that, like for instance, the whole issue of NAFTA and free trade and globalization, for instance, they don't realize that people who live out in some small town in Wisconsin, one factory town, I don't know, like a linen company, right, that has like some looms and shit like that. You lower the tariff, that factory is going to be destroyed. That small community, they can't move because first of all, nobody wants to buy a house in some shitty town that's dying, that doesn't have that's not booming, right? So they're stuck there with a house that they cannot sell, and they're still paying the mortgage on it. And all their family lives there, the grandparents and cousins and shit. And so they can't move. But these cosmopolitans do not understand that. And I think it's a horrible thing because yeah.
No, it's because I'll tell you a little detail. That at my parents' place, the guy next to them moved out, and I was actually wound up being happy with who moved in. Mm-hmm. Not because it wasn't like someone who did completely alien and new to the environment. It's people whose families had lived in this community for generations. The family still lives there, and these are both this newly married couple. Moved in, and all their roots are still here. And I was actually happy for my parents' sake. I'm like, this is like the ideal neighbors you want. They have an investment in the community in one way, shape, or form. And that's the kind of thinking that is just going to be completely alien in this situation. And it may seem odd to some people in my social class in particular to say, why would you care about that? I fundamentally care about that. That's the necessary glue to have if you want to have that locality. And I'm probably ranting myself, but I mean, that there's a certain degree which we're trained, at least my cohort of people are trained not to care about such things detrimentally because it doesn't affect us.
Yeah. Or no, we have been socialized into thinking that it doesn't affect us, but in fact it does because it's eroding the foundation for the whole society, which includes us.
Yeah.
Well,
so why do we always end on dour notes?
I don't know. I mean, I took my happy pill before the start of this podcast. I guess it must have run its course. Oh, and by the way,
it can't be that dour because, like I said, hey, my parents had good local neighbors. Let's be happy that my parents don't have to put up with shit. Sorry, you guys don't know my parents, but I want you to be happy for them.
Oh, by the way, I was wrong. It wasn't Charlie Prince, Chuck Prince rather. It was Sandy Wheel.
Oh yeah, that's
Sandy Wheel. Yeah, because I looked at Chuck Prince's name and I was like, Chuck Prince? Yeah, but he was the chairman. But Chuck Prince, and then I started snooping around Google, and it was Sandy Wheel, the guy before him. He was the guy who aimed for Citibank to be the supermarket of banks. And
now Citibank is such a shithole bank, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Internationally, by the way, everywhere in the world, it's a shithole bank. So anyway, look, on that note, now that we finally got down to the Sandy Wheel conundrum, let's call it a day insofar as this podcast. We've been ranting for a little bit over an hour, so we'll call it. You want to do the outro?
Sure thing. It's been the Coach and Benway podcast. I'm your co-host, Dr. Benway. I want to let you know on behalf of all of us, thanks for listening. And
All
take
of
it
us?
easy.
All of us? It sounds like we're like a huge team. We're just two randoms doing DIY podcasting.
Coach and Benway are legion.